I would like to introduce Amal Tahri, our Parisian. So she's an impassioned sociotechnical system thinker with a voracious appetite for learning all aspects of architecture and design. She places a strong emphasis on understanding how organizational and interpersonal dynamics impact architectural choices. Amal is also an enthusiast for problem solving and adept at using communication to foster a positive and collaborative work environment. Today, she will be addressing the topic of evolution patterns of sociotechnical systems. Amal, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello. Hi, everybody. So today I'm going to talk about the evolution pattern of social technical system. And with no further ado, so thank you to our sponsors. This particular subject is actually a research subject that I've been gathering from several resources that I will show at the end. For starter, we're gonna explain digital transformation example. Then, of course, we're gonna explain in theory why this digital transformation example didn't happen and didn't go through, so it was not a success. Third of all, we're gonna see what this client could have done better, and I'm gonna leave you with some takeaways. So this particular client that I'm talking about, so I do consulting in architecture, and this one is the one case that you don't forget. It was my first mainframe case, and the client was doing digital transformation. The first one, for 40 years, he has never done any digital transformation, so we're not talking about microservices here. He has a mainframe. That mainframe worked for 40 long years. It's robust enough, but it starts to reach its limit as the clients are no longer satisfied because they don't get the evolution that have been promised. The service start to be not available as much as we want it to be, and we're talking about mainframes, so a lot of the competence and the talent knowing the technology are retiring, so we are losing knowledge about the system. So the client decided to replace this mainframe with the ERP system, commercial off-the-shelf. Everything is a buy, so we don't have developer in this company. The people that remains, there are just 2 persons that knows how the mainframe works, how this dependency works, and we decided to just buy. So it's not a build strategy. And of course, like any transformation program, we have 6-year plans and we have allocated budget and we appoint the best people. Do you see like something that's wrong with this sentence? We have a budget estimation for 6 years. 1 year after, we had 20% of the budget allocated burned, hundreds and thousands of documentation, so you get the specification and the detailed specification in function and in technical, and not a single line of code. This actually tells a lot about this company. They have never done digital transformation. They were just acting the way that they knew how to act for 14 years, the ways of working. So you have project planning, you established this is the target and we're going to do it. But in the way, they didn't have this expectation about the complexity of the system that they are creating. So they had the first plan. The first plan had a result. The result was not feasible. Why? Because we have lots of dependency, we went into much details, we didn't think about that exception, and we didn't think about that scenario and that client that we should satisfy his needs. And they continued to do that in a vicious circle for 1 year. And of course, if you have burned your budget, 20% of your budget, and you have nothing as an MVP or a line code to show what you are doing, you will continue just to do the same thing, and the program will not be a success. So what really happened? And here, brace yourselves, we're going to deep dive into the theory. Your social technical system is not aligned. So I'm going to ask myself the question, what is a social technical system? Actually, the theory of social technical system first started in the 50s with Eric Trist when he's working on the mind call. And the theory was that the things that we are creating, the engineering, in our case, the product and the software, is not only that part of technology that we are creating, it's depending on several other aspects. So, we are architects, we love frameworks, so I'm presenting a framework to understand the complexity of social technical system. In our field, in information technology, we just don't do development and code release just for the love of it. Some of us do, but the company need to have a business strategy regarding the code that they are creating. So this is the first component of our social technical system. When you're talking about strategy, you will have a vision and you will have use cases. And then we will have our organization and technology that we will set the basis for our social technical system. In technology, we talk about architecture, data, and platform. And when we talk about organization, we have the people, the process, and the culture. And when all these parts of the system interacts together, pattern emerges. And I'm going to quote Gregor Hope for his definition of pattern, where he said, patterns are recurrent problem, so something that you and I have seen before. Maybe some of you in this room can think about digital transformation that absolutely went wrong. This pattern is observed from a real-world experience, so we all live it at some point. A pattern will give a solution or a teaching about how to observe that kind of pattern or how you can resolve this kind of pattern or break the cycle. And of course, we have name to form a language of pattern. And when talking about names, I'm going to use the research work that have been done by William Brown about pattern and system archetype. System archetype are used to describe the behavior of a system. And to do that, he's using feedback loops. We have reinforcing feedback loops, and we have the balancing feedback loops. In his research, William Brown have stated 10 archetypes, but in this talk, we're going to just deep dive into one, which is the limits to growth. So to understand this causal feedback loop, we're going to use causal loop diagram. So I'm putting an effort, and in this effort, I'm getting a result. Effort and result are the variable, and the link between effort and result is my causal link. And the polarity that I will have in the result will determine which loop I'm dealing with. So I use plus signs from one variable to another. And to understand a pattern is the repeatable cycle that I will have between the cause and the effect. So for example, a reinforcing loop. Imagine that you're driving your car, you're on a highway, and your foot on the pedal, and you just keep pressing that pedal, and you're accelerating. So the vehicle is accelerating. That's a reinforcing loop. A balancing loop, when someone comes behind and he starts honking for you to get out of the way, So you need to shift gear and you need to shift lanes. And the fact that the person is coming behind you and is just honking, that's a slow in action. That will impact your speed. So you need to decelerate and you need to switch lanes. What happened in the case of this client is what we call limits to growth. So this client has been a leader in his field for 40 years. There was no competition, business is good. He didn't find the need actually to modernize his system because everything was working fine. And limits to growth is just fancy word to tell you that nothing grows forever. But to explain it on a more deeper level, it means that when you are expressing and accelerating growth, a system will reach at a given point a limit that will no longer be possible to grow more. And the hypothesis is even that you are putting effort and you are trying your best to make it through that growth and to have a balance to gain momentum, you will not do it because you are reaching the system limit. So in our case, this client has been a leader, there's no competition. Over 40 years, the dependency have been entangled with all the part of the system. We have too much expectation. We have dressed a specific case for every client, depending on his needs. So we have very, very specific system. We are not fit to a standard. And we have like lots and lots and lots of documentation. And go find the right information in this documentation. So, what could they have done better? What William Brown stated in his research is a set of action that I have adapted in the things that it has to be iterative action. So first of all, you need to establish what is your growth engine. What's the thing that's gonna gain me momentum? What's the thing that's gonna differentiate me from the others as a company? The second step is I need to identify what are the limits or maybe the things that are balancing this willing to growth. And the third step is determine the change that you need to do and repeat. That's the cycle of learning. You don't expect that at the first trial you will get it done, it's going to be perfect. You need to learn step by step from the experience that you are having. And this is the thing that we need to consider when we are putting a strategy or defining a goal. We need to constantly learn from the execution plan, from the constraint that we have on the ground, on the reality, to adapt that system and reiterate. And to use that, we're going to see from each point of view, from each part of the system, how to establish this proposal. So first of all, let's start by business strategy. The thing that the client done, in this case that didn't go actually well, we're doing a digital transformation. Okay, I want to have new management and new sales management tools. I need to enhance my logistics. I need to enhance the manufacturing. I need to enhance the client knowledge. And while doing it, let's modernize the mainframe. So that's feasible. Actually, the thing that I love this picture about when a kitten is looking in the mirror and seeing a lion. Sometimes we don't have the real perception of our abilities and what actually our system and our organization allows us to do. So this client has put that goal, that target, and you will go through that target. So you send all these shiny things that each goal that he has put is actually a transformation program on its own. And the awareness about the constraint that will limit that growth was not at what is required. So he has an outdated technology, he was using water flow methodology, he was replicating system that already exists. So that's the dependency path. I want the ERP to do exactly what the mainframe does. But you know, your mainframe is specific, and ERP is a standard. You need to have compromises. No, I will not have compromises. After deliberate discussion and whatever, the client realized that he's trying actually to modernizing 70% of his organization in total, his information system, his logistic manner, the logistics flow, everything is trying to change. And when you change things all together at the same time, so you are creating a chaos. So at this moment, the change that we have proposed is to reduce the scope. That's only normal. We cannot do all things at once. We need to prioritize. So first of all, we have chosen a small part of the system. So let's take from your 70% that you want to change, let's take like 20%, but let's do it end to end. Let's try to have this experience, see what's go well, what goes wrong, and then we adapt. So we have decided to only consider an MVP approach on an end-to-end process. Now let's talk about the people that's going to work on this MVP approach. Now we're going to see the organization. So first of all, what is the growth engine that any company has? In my opinion, it's the people. The people are the biggest asset that a company has, and any organization needs to invest in the people. However, they didn't do any digital transformation for 40 years. They launched a transformation program that will impact 70% of the company by setting 3 projects, the one next to another. Nobody talked to each other, and each team was working on this specific project. And actually, nobody thought about that end-to-end process. And I think that they continued actually to work over and over, but we see this is the problem, this is the documentation, we don't have the knowledge required to establish that part of the system. Yeah, of course, because you are isolated in that part, and actually you keeping doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different outcomes. Einstein defined that as insanity. The change that we have proposed, okay, we're going to choose people from the different projects and going to put them together and to work on the end-to-end process regarding that new MVP scope. People are not that happy, as you can see by the blue one. Now, okay, let's see what we're going to do about technology. And here's Conway's law. Your architecture is going to be a copy of your organization communication structure. We are constrained as human beings working on a technological system to create software or products that are as the image or a copy of how we communicate together. That means that I need to include organization when I'm talking about technology. Who are the people? What are the process? Where is the culture? Let's see an example. So one of the possibility that we have proposed is, let's try a new modeling approach. You have spent 1 year trying to get what is the solution, try to go into details, try to find the answer for what problem? Digital transformation, that's very big as a problem. So let's explore the problem space. So you have to only ask question. There's no solution. We're not going to talk about solution. Nobody going to talk about application, nothing. You will not answer this question. Only ask a question. And we're going to repeat it. We have to model it wrong. The idea of this exercise actually is to break the pattern of, no, I need to have that answer, I need to talk to, I don't know, Frank from accounting, I need to have, I don't know, from finance, because we need this answer. No, we need to start to model it wrong in order to be able to eliminate all that fuzzes that we have around, all that background thinking, that we need that exception, that, and to embrace the fact that we can do things wrong and it's okay. So we have called the team and presented this methodology, and let's do the first workshop. And it was absolutely a disaster. Nobody wanted to ask questions, and they were all, oh no, why we are doing this, and we have, I don't know how much documentation. Did you read the documentation that we have provided? And where is Kevin? And where is, I don't know, they keep like asking me to put new people in this workshop because we need him for the information, we need him. And there was always the one that makes a joke. This is fun. That chaos is actually exciting to him. So, and this is normal, this is the resistant phase that you will have when you are proposing something to change. What we did, okay, so do you need Ryan? Do you need, I don't know, Alexa? Do you need new people? We're gonna have these new people with us. And actually, when we invited these new people, like something in the dynamics of the group changed. People are start to ask questions, start to playing the things that we ask them to do. They start to interact on a different level, and actually we did get the exercise done. But where is that? Actually, the people that we have had different type of leadership. So we had the one who's visionary. When we're talking about model it wrong, people were, oh yeah, I went to that conference and I know this new tools that we can use and actually to collaborate together. And he was like a driver for the whole group. We had another type of leadership that was the incubating, and he was like the one connecting the different people and ask them to do the work with us, and why not, this can be interesting. We have another type that is the directive type, and he was like setting the direction, and when the group get actually doing lots of fun or not focused, so he will refocus the group, and we have this planning, and we need to finish this by noon, and because we're hungry, and of course there's no much time to do the work. And he will define the process, and he will be forced to execute things. And the final type of leadership is the collaborative type. So he's the one who's self-aware, he's the one that's creating trust among the different team members, and he was actually sharing power. There's no power involved when you're doing this kind of workshop. And this combination of different types actually have helped us create a network. What you see, this is another theory about two loops of change. And this is actually how you will drive change effectively. You need to connect people, you need to give them a purpose, and you need to drive them and nourish them in order to make this idea into something that is really actionable. In order to establish that, you need to have a community of practice. The community of practice where we have something in common, such collaborative modeling. And here I want to present different type of collaborative modeling that we have in domain-driven design. So for the strategy, we have the worldly mapping. For the big picture, we have event storming. For how team must be organized and collaborate together, we have team topology. And core domain chart, actually, when you deep dive into this domain and you need to tell which one is your core differentiator, and finally, context mapping when you need to connect this different domain. This will help the community of practice become a system of influence. So they have a purpose, they have a vision, they have the tools that they need to do, to work with, and a system of influence is the one that you will unleash it in the organization, and it will be like a kind of champion or a kind of evangelist that we will talk about other people that are still not believers in that thing, to encourage them to join them. And finally, the most important thing is to have a common and shared culture. And the funny thing about culture is actually it's a set of patterns. So these are patterns of assumption that have been invented by a given group in order to learn and to cope with external problem, when you need to have an adaptation or you need to have integration. And the thing about the culture, it is taught to new members that are joining that group as the right thing to act and to perceive and to think and to feel about these problems. And Edgar Schein also said that leadership is the management of the culture. So here's a question for you. And when I'm talking about leadership, it's not only the person with the title, any person who is involved with decision-making. This is a question for you. What kind of culture are you creating? So as takeaways, I want to finish with we love frameworks. Social technical systems are complex systems. They have 3 core components: the business strategy, the architecture, and the technology, and the organization. And you need to align these 3 for any change to be successful. You need to constantly learn from the execution plan and you reevaluate your strategy. So there is one step where you will identify your growth engine. The second step, what are the limits? The third step, how to embrace change and how to make it happen. And repeat. You will not get it right the first time. You need to repeat. And the third takeaway is there are collaborative tools that will help us work together. I want to share with you the reference that I used in this talk. If you have any question, please feel free to come and ask me. And to finish, this is me, if you want to get in touch. And do you have any question? Thank you.
Questions time, right? All right. So, the first question that we have here, did you have to remove people from the team because they weren't contributing to the change? How did you handle it?
That's a very hard question. That's the less fun part about this kind of situation, but the answer is yes. And how to do it is by giving, honestly, my opinion about the person. So in this particular case, the person was not at all collaborating. It has a burst of nerve all the time, and when we tried to talk with him, what can we change? How can he collaborate? How can we work together? He was like this wall. We cannot communicate. So I removed myself from the situation and I asked someone else to try to talk to this person. And actually, that's a pattern that repeated itself. The person was not at all collaborating. We didn't know any information about the system that he has developed, and it was really slowing down the process. At a certain point, when you have blockers like that, you need to take measurements that are not always that easy to take, because we're talking about people, we're talking about people that are doing their work, but they didn't fit well in that situation. So the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm. And most developers don't like to move around teams, and some are more resistant to change than others. What are your tips in this situation?
For this case, we have a marketo, an open marketo. Actually, you don't just tell people, oh, you need to move and that's it. Of course, we are not going to do that. There is an open market too, when there is open opportunities like this to work on that. So voluntary people can came and just say, okay, I want to work on this subject, I'm interested. And this is how we create team. In the other case, when there are not a lot of volunteers, we actually need to have arrangement with some developers, and generally are the one with the knowledge and the one that are senior enough to help us, for example, continue and have a good result, with a promise, of course, that if they didn't like the settings, the new settings, that they can come back to their other jobs or other teams.
Thank you. And at what point of asymptotic approach to the system limit should you make a decision to modernize or rebuild?
That's a very hard one. That's a very hard one. It's the same thing that we talked about yesterday about how to make an architecture decision and what is the right point to do that. Sometimes this is why you need to have really short cycles about testing this approach, so you can adapt. And you can see about the people interaction and the group dynamics. Sometimes you have, okay, so everything is good, so you're proposing something new, and people, okay, that we have that phase of resistance, but now people can embark on that journey. But sometimes it's like a wave of chaos and nobody will accept it. And you see that we're just going back on decisions that have been taken before. And I think that when you sense that in a group, you need to take the measurements required and able to achieve what you are achieving. Mm-hmm. I hope that answered the question.
And can you recommend good books on systems thinking?
Yes, the one that was, I'm sorry, I'm horrible with names. The one, I don't know if I can share the references that I have. Can we reshare it on the screen? Yeah, thank you. So, system thinking, the one book that I read was Donella. And there's the research paper by William Brown. I think the book by Donella is easier to understand, and as she explained a lot with lots of examples to hold the grasp of the complexity about system thinking. But these are the references that I use, and I'm open if you have other references, so don't hesitate. Thank you.
Thank you. And what collaborative modeling techniques have you had the most success with?
I think I'm biased here. I'm biased, so it's event storming. Generally, it's event storming, and it's actually funny how things start, because when you do event storming, you always have people will diverge, so you don't have a consensus about what is the right process and what is the thing. And you see that in the diversion, you see that the directive type are very stressed when this thing is happening, because actually you need to just you have good ideas and you have bad ideas, and to reach these good ideas you need to work through the bad ideas. And what I like about event storming, so you just throw ideas everywhere and then you see, okay, this is not working. When you have this interaction with different people, they see something that's not right. So we get like, we delete lots of post-it, and you know that part of diversions have passed, and now we are converging.
And how do you deal with narrow-minded people?
Oh, that's a really, really hard question. I've tried several techniques with people narrow-minded. I've tried open discussion, but sometimes that doesn't work. So, and this is one of the things that I'm still fascinated about. So, with all due respect, there are some people that are bluffing, and when you call them on their bluffing, so they just try to continue. No, you're wrong. I'm not bluffing, but well, you know, when you're talking about architecture and you have like the facts, it's logical. We're doing algorithm. We're doing like something that's structured, and so there's no false perception here. So it's just fact, and generally, sometimes that narrow-minded people have really difficulty to engage in a real and deep conversation. So either I put a mask to talk with them, so that's one of the defense mechanism that we can have, or just I generally minimize the discussion with them, and I generally look to whom they are talking the most and who they are friend with. So if there is a communication, I need to pass through the intermediary, but I don't really like that, but sometimes you have to.
Mm-hmm. And the last question is, what was the result of the project that you were talking about?
That's a really good question. Actually, as you can see, this particular project, they have 2 integrators and 1 service provider, so it was also a whole dynamic of partnership that was wrong. They have the problem of the budget. At the first year, actually, they discovered that they have burned 20% of the budget, but now when we deep dive on just a normal level, we did understand that they were lacking 30%, additional 30% of what is required to establish this project. So the idea was really to minimize the scope of this project, but at the end the other project was descoped and they were just working on the MVP. So as you can know, so it was not a success, and statistically 70% of digital transformation don't go through or don't reach the goal that have been defined as the first goal.
Thank you very much, Amal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.